Is the Blichmann Engineering RipTide pump better than a Chugger pump for home brewing? You bet it is. If you'd like to see more about why I think it is, stick around and I'll tell you. Hello everyone and welcome back. Larry here again today to talk about homebrewing pumps. Okay, so as you know, if you've been following my channel for a while, I never even used pumps until just a few years ago. I was a gravity brewer all the way until I built my 10-gallon DIY system and where I invested in my first homebrewing pump, this Chugger pump that you see right here. And I used it for a few years now and I've been having problems with it over time. Occasional runtime issues, clogs, just going on the fritz, requiring disassembly. The noise level was really bad, even especially during my live stream brew days now that I've been doing, and even more so now that I have the Spike Solo behind me, which uses the pump a lot more than my previous method of brewing. My previous method of brewing, I would only use the pump intermittently for certain steps between racking or recirculation steps. With the brew in the bag system by Spike now, it is pretty much running all the time. So it's pretty noisy, pretty obnoxious. And when I was doing my live streams, as you may recall, I did a live stream back in March. We had Clay from Jada Brewing here as our guest, right? If you remember that day. It was really loud. It was a constant background sound, and it was really obnoxious. We had some pump issues that caused us to stop what we were doing during the live stream and address them and break this thing apart and clean it out. And that was the last straw, right? So I got rid of this. Well, I still have it, but I quit using this thing and decided to go with the Blichmann Engineering RipTide. Now, I should have done this years ago, but me being a sort of a frugal brewer, right? I do a lot of my equipment myself at home. Don't spend a lot of money on this stuff, and I'm sure a lot of you are like that as well. I went with the cheaper Chugger pump off screen here, and I regretted it. In hindsight, I should have spent the extra money and went ahead and got the Blichmann RipTide because it took care of all the issues that I've had with my Chugger. And what were those issues again? Well, I wrote a list. Let's see. So I mentioned the occasional runtime issues with the Chugger pump. It would go on the fritz. It required manual priming, which I actually addressed by adding on this extra check valve here, here to. Oh, yeah, you know, this darn thing's sticky too. See, it's already giving me problems. So I did fix that problem with the. Unable to bleed the air out of the lines, but that was an extra expense, well and above the cost of the Chugger pump. So the RipTide comes with one, right? And that comes with a built-in pull pin, which is, I must have put it together a little bit odd because the pull pin is wedged behind the piece here. So if I take, now this is another thing I like about the RipTide, is that it disassembles so easily with this T-clamp. I mean, right here, right on screen, I was able to take the head off with a twist of the tri-clamp fitting there and able to free the pull pin that I actually was trying to show you before to give you that extra bleed valve built in. So what this is running for is around $200, I think it is. This Chugger pump with the stainless steel head alone was well over, maybe close to 150 maybe. I'm not quite sure now, but I had to buy an extra fitting and a ball valve for the bleeder effect. So, and I also, with the Chugger pump, I had to make my own mounting surface because the one that comes with it is not sufficient to hold this thing up on its own. It'll fall forward and tip over and stuff. So I actually had to make my own base for it, while the RipTide comes with its own base here, and it stands up just fine on its own without any extra cost or effort to mount it to something like I had to do with the Chugger, right? So big bonus there. And did I mention the noise? I mean, seriously, I don't have a sound meter, but trust me, if you haven't had a Chugger pump and you're looking to buy one, get some earplugs, especially if you're going to be doing a brew in the bag system like the Spike Solo back here, which runs constantly for a good long while. Because when I switched to using the RipTide with the Spike Solo, it was purring like a kitten. It was beautifully quiet and a very enjoyable brewing day compared to using the Chugger. Now I have to say, I was given this pump by Blichmann to try out, and of course they want to get this in front of you as one of my viewers, right? So I did not pay for this, although I was paying for it. I actually had paid for it online when I ordered it out of frustration soon after my live brew day experience with the Chugger pump last time I used it. And they realized I was buying it, credited me the money back, and said they'll just send me one for free. So I was actually going to buy this anyway. So this is, I mean, this is my honest opinion. They're not paying me to give you any kind of feedback. I'm just sharing with you what I think is a better pump than what I've had before. And I mentioned disassembly briefly, right? So this thing has a tri-clamp or tri-clover clamp system around it that takes the valve head right off. So I can actually unscrew this thing. Now there's parts in here that I don't want to lose, but just to show you briefly, the clamp comes right off, and so does everything in there. Let's make sure I don't lose all the parts. So there's the head, there's the fittings, and this also breaks down too. You can actually take the impeller off. It's magnetic, so it takes a little effort, as well as the inner piece. So that's it. I mean, it just came right apart. Whereas whenever I had to mess around with the Chugger pump, you got a number of screws in front there. They have to come off. This whole thing comes off, and you have to screw it all back on with hand tools or power tools or whatever, right? One more thing I do want to mention, with my Chugger pump, there's no on-off switch. The on-off switch is plugging this thing in and out of a wall outlet. Now I worked around that with a foot pedal at additional cost that I had to pay and mount to something as well. So the total cost of having this Chugger pump to behave like the RipTide does out of the box probably was about break even in hindsight, honestly. I should have just went with the Chugger, I'm sorry, I should have just went with the RipTide right out of the box, or right from the get-go, because to use a pump or a foot pedal with the Chugger, buying the extra fittings, the wood, all the effort and time to put this thing together to get the same functionality I get right now with just the Chugger right out of the package. Sorry, the Chugger, I keep saying Chugger, but this is the RipTide. It's no comparison. I should have just done it right from the start and saved me the time and hassle. And of course I was going to mention the power option, which was the switch on the side. So this can stay plugged in, and the thing's activated by a little power switch here on the side. Now, with my Spike Solo that I used it for, there's a switch actually on the control panel that can turn the pump power on and off. But if you don't have something like that, this is very welcome. And something else that I haven't yet messed with, but it's really nice to know that you can, is that this pump head can be oriented 360 degrees around, because all you gotta do is put this thing back on, put the tri-clamp on, and rotate it and clamp it down, whereas the Chugger pump comes, I think, in two different styles, two different style heads that you have to buy for this thing. Right now I got this arrangement here, but they come in different arrangements, but it's a fixed mounting scheme on this thing. So there's not a whole lot you can do with it. It's more limited as to how you can orient it. Whereas, of course, the Chugger, I keep saying Chugger, the RipTide pump can rotate and position it in any direction to match up with your brew equipment and your brew system, I mean. So now that I have the RipTide pump, I am no longer going to use the Chugger pump except as a backup in case, heaven forbid, something happens to the RipTide, or maybe I need a second pump for some other purpose. But honestly, now that I know how nice the RipTide is, I really do like using it. I may never even use the Chugger again, but it is going to stick around my garage as a backup. But who knows, in the future I may actually get a second RipTide. We'll see. Now I can't finish one of my review videos without pointing out a downside at least, right? I mean, I've been talking really great about how great this RipTide pump is over the Chugger. There is one thing about it that I was a little disappointing. It's actually one of the positives as well as a negative. Now, I had the, let me take this head off here. So here's the head, here's the pull ring, right? You pull the ring to bleed the air out. Well, what it does, so that's the positive, that it's got a built-in bleeder, like I mentioned before, but the downside of it is that it just shoots out the wort, water, or beer out these little side holes here, and it can make a mess on your floor. Now me, I have rubber floors here. I just mop it right on up, no big deal, but it is something to be concerned with, because with the Chugger pump, with my own valve that I added on, now this doesn't come with the Chugger, right? So, but I can actually put a small little bowl underneath the front of this thing and collect the runoff that way when I bleed. Whereas I don't, so far I have not found a reasonable way to go ahead and collect that runoff from pulling this lever here. So that's the only downside I've seen with this pump, and it's a minor one, guys. So I like it, love it. I've used it a couple times at least already. It's my go-to pump going forward, and that's my opinion. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions about what's going on and about this pump or anything I've said in this video, put them in the comments section down below. And if you are a new viewer and not yet a subscriber, consider subscribing. I do a lot of DIY content, home brewing, cooking, and the like. And if you like that kind of stuff, sign on up, click the subscribe button, and ring the bell to get notified. Okay. Other than that, I will talk to you all later.